welcome back to my channel. It's Angie from Feeling a Little Bookish, and I'm bringing to you my August wrap-up. I'm not that late. It's only the first week of September, so, you know, I'm good with this one. In August, I read 7 books, and May, June, July, I read 7 books. I'm not sure why. It's not like I'm sitting here saying, okay, I'm going to read 7 books. I want to read more because I've had other months where I've read more. I've just been busy, you know, and such is life. But anyway, let's get started. So the first book that I actually read in August was 44 Chapters About 4 Men by B.B. Easton. I'm pretty sure you've heard about this by now, but it's been out for a few years. I think since 2018, maybe. It's basically an autobiography, or a biography, or a memoir. It's a memoir about BB's life, you know, with her husband and leading up to being with her husband, the guys in her life, and it stems from her, you know, she's married, she has her kids, but she's in a rut, and I feel like a lot of us go through that as well, whether we are married or whether we have kids or whether we don't have any of those. Sometimes we just go through ruts. So she starts to write a journal, leaving hints for her husband to pick up on what she wants as far as, you know, her sex life and all that other stuff. So if you've seen Sex Life, speaking of, which is the show that was inspired by this novel, it's on Netflix. I like binge watched the show, and then I was like, I need to read this memoir, and honestly, there were parts of it that I could relate to 100%. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women who can relate to parts of this, you know, if not most of it, some of it, whatever the case is. It's a very relatable book. I remember seeing a review on Goodreads, and there was a reviewer, she's like, she basically put, why do I want to read a novel about this woman's past boyfriends, including ones from high school? And I'm thinking to myself, you know, when I saw that, I was like, who you date in high school, who you date in college, who you date after the fact, it all has an impact on your life. You're not just gonna date the perfect guy, you know, and that's it. Or you're not just gonna not date anyone and just get married, like an arranged marriage, and he's like perfection, you know what I mean? Every relationship that you have, whether it's a friendship or a love connection or even, you know, a parental relationship, it all has impact on your life. And I was like, how is it that this person wrote this? But anyway, read this. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me feel like, oh my god, this is me. It was really good. The second book that I read was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This book is about 17-year-old Enchanted Jones. She goes to a private school. She is on the swim team. She's athletic. She has a beautiful voice. And her dream is to be a singer. So her friend actually sends her an audition, but she can't go to this audition because her mom said to her, her parents have basically said to her, we know your dream is to be a singer, but it's not a practical dream. Like, you have a chance to be on the swim team and, you know, to do something else that'll give you a stable job, whereas singing won't. It's just a dream. It's just something that is not practical. Anyway, she somehow convinces her mom to drive her to this audition by disguising it as a swim team meet. So her mom takes her to the audition, and she says to her, when they get to the building, there's nobody in the building for this swim meet, right? So her mom figures it out. She's there for an audition because it just so happens that Enchanted is like, oh, let me go sign up for this audition. Anyway, she sings. And she sings a classic song, and I don't remember what it was. I'm pretty sure I wrote it down somewhere. But she sings a classic song because she loves the classics. So the judges who, this audition is basically for a TV show. So the judges were like, nah, you know, you're so young, why are you singing classic? Like sing something by Beyonce or whatever, right? Anyway, they don't put her on the show. But in the audience is R&B mega superstar Corey Fields, and he's 28. There is, I believe, a little intro part that's, well, I mean, there are trigger warnings as well. So although this is marketed as like a YA, there are trigger warnings. And they are sexual abuse, rape, assault, child abuse, kidnapping, and addiction to opioids. I think it was in the back, actually, where Tiffany actually mentions that this book, it's kind of based off of the whole R. Kelly situation, but it's not about him. It's she says that it's a book about abuse of power, and it's about the pattern of excusing grown men for their behavior while faulting young girls for their missteps. This book, it made me cry in the sense of I have a daughter, and thankfully I've never found myself in a situation where I was taken advantage by an older guy, and in this case he's 11 years older than Enchanted, but I do have a daughter, and you know, I would be heartbroken, I'd be scared, or you know, like if my daughter was 17, what does a 28-year-old guy want with a 17-year-old? You know, he promised Enchanted that he would make all her dreams come true and studio time and all this stuff, but he actually kept her away from her family. Unfortunately, other things happened to her, you know, that he did to her. Eventually she is rescued, but that's not to say without any traumas. You know, she's gonna have PTSD and all this. It's hard for her to live a normal life after she is saved. But it's a really good book, and this made me so excited to read more by Tiffany D. Jackson. There's a book that's coming out, and it's a scary one, and I'm like, oh, I need to read it. Anyway, that'll be mentioned in my Some Books I Want to Read video, so stay tuned for that. The third book that I read was Sancte Diaboli, Part 2 by Amo Jones, and this is the conclusion in the Elite Kings Club book series. I prolonged reading this book for 2 months because it came out in June. I prolonged it because I didn't want the series to end. I love all the guys. I love Brantley and Nate so much. Anyway, this is a continuation from part 1, which is centered off of Brantley and Saint. It's their story. Saint is basically kidnapped. You find out why. She's got some like witchy powers to her. Yeah, I don't want to give away the book. Like, I don't want it to say any spoilers, but the way it ended, it was so sweet, and I'm seriously looking forward to the new generation, and I can't believe that that's it, that Nate and Brantley and Bishop, you know, that's it for them. They're gonna be parents. I did not like Bishop from the third book on. I was like, the first 2 books, I was like, yes, Bishop. But then it became about Nate for me. And then once I got a hold of Brantley, I was like, yes. So now my order is Brantley, Nate, and then Bishop. I'm sorry. I know people love mad shit, but I'm all about Brantley and Saint and Brantley's ladder. Yeah. Anyway, next book is Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geissinger. All right. This was my first Mafia book, and it was so good. I devoured this book, and I'm so excited to read more Mafia books. So this has to do with Nat. She goes to this bar on the 5th anniversary of her fiance's disappearance, death. It would have been like their wedding, but he like disappeared. Anyway, so while at the bar, she actually sees this really hot guy. Turns out it's Cage. Turns out he is the temporary head of the Russian mafia. Anyway, Nat is like vanilla. She, you know, doesn't really date around. She hasn't really dated around. She was engaged to David. She was ready to get married. She's not really experienced in that respect with men. And Cage, there is an ulterior motive to Cage paying attention to her. However, he does actually fall for her, and their whole story was amazing. It made me want a mafia guy, but I don't because I'm already married. But you know what I mean. He knows his way around a woman's body. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, yeah, this is a good read. This is so good, and like the things he said to her, they were so realistic. Like he was just like, I need you to trust me. Like just trust me. But if you know you're not gonna trust me, and if you don't feel comfortable with me, don't waste my time and don't waste your time, basically. Anyway, 5th book that I read for August was Carnal Urges, which is book 2 in the Queens and Monsters series by J.T. Geissinger. So after I read Ruthless Creatures, I went right into Carnal Urges. This one is about Declan, who is the mafia, Irish mafia, like, head as well. I wouldn't say that. I'd say he's like, he starts out as like second in command, and then something happens. Anyway, and it's about Sloane, who is Nat's best friend. At the end of Ruthless Creatures, spoiler alert, Sloane is kidnapped in like a parking garage. Anyway, this one I actually liked more than Ruthless Creatures. I really like Declan. Like, I was like, oh my god. He's older than Sloane. I think he was like 42 or something. And she's 27, right? 27, 28, something like that. Maybe 29. But he's in his 40s. And so he's the older guy, and like, you know, he has experience. He doesn't have relationships. He like basically hits it and quits it. But then he falls for his captive, which is Sloane. Like, and how could you not fall for her? She's amazing. She was like strong, and she's sassy, and she's just like, listen, I'm your captive. Either you make this better for both of us and treat me with some respect and give me what I want, or I'm just gonna make your life hell. That's it. Obviously, they fall in love. I love them together. And like the ending, that twist, I was like, oh my god, what? So I gotta wait for book 3, which comes out in October. I mean, it's next month because it's September, but yeah, it's sometime, right? And the 6th book that I read in August was Dirty Diana by January James, and this one centers around Diana and Jude. However, when Diana first meets Jude, she doesn't know his name. She's been really like down in the dumps and just not even showering. She's the VP of an indie label, like indie record label, and she's just like, she needs to find some acts. You know, she's from England. She lives in New York. She wants to make big. She does have a past, and it all like makes sense. Like it ties together. Anyway, so she's not out in this business to look great. She just wants to make it. You know what I mean? So the label's not doing well, and so she's got to, you know, have some acts. She's got to come up with revenue. She's got to come up with people who are gonna bring in money, or, you know, unfortunately, the label's not gonna last much longer. So she's at a bar and someone passes her a card, and it has code on the back, and so it's for a club called Decadence. And by club, I mean sex club. So she calls the number up, but that's with some convincing from the bartender. Anyway, she goes, and her first encounter was like really crappy. But when she went to sign the contracts and stuff, the NDAs and whatnot, there's someone, one of the owners caught her eye, and like she felt this connection to him. And so her first encounter at the club with one of its patrons was not the greatest. So actually one of the owners, who is Jude, says, listen, come back and I'll make sure personally that you have a good time at my sex club. So she goes back and they connect on so many levels. And while you're there, you're not supposed to show your face. So you're wearing a mask the entire time, or they call it a veil. That way nobody knows who you are, nobody sees you, right? And you don't share personal information about yourself as well, because the less that people know about you, the better, considering that a lot of the men that are there are rich, you know, wealthy, paying patrons of the sex club. Anyway, they break a couple rules when they have their one-on-one time, and you know, anyway, she goes back to work. I mean, they see each other a few times. She goes back to work. There's a meeting because there's somebody coming in to basically take over the label and then make it better, or it's gonna be sold. You know what I mean? It's like one of those takeover type people. Turns out that CEO who's going to axe her job is Jude. So this puts them on this whole thing of like, I fell for you, you fell for me, and now you're here threatening my job. What I liked was that she's so headstrong that she continued to do whatever. She's like, I fell in love with you, but I'm on my path. Like, this is what I want. I want to be part of a successful label. I want to be a good VP of this label, and I love the indie scene, all this stuff. It was a good novel. It was really good. I love the fact that January James, she uses really headstrong females in her books. You know, they're not just about, oh, I'm a damsel in distress, just let you save me, you know. And the sex scenes were really good. You know, Decadence is where it's at. The final book that I read in August is book 3 of the Savage Falls Sinners MC series by Caitlyn, and it's called Sacred. It basically continues from the book 2 cliffhanger, and you're like, holy crap, where's Dane? Anyway, Dane was taken by Darren Creed, who is the now leader of the rival motorcycle club gang. My heart broke for Dane. I still like him. If you can keep me consistently liking the same character through a whole series, then you know you're doing your job. Because as much as I like Wes and as much as I love Rhett, I am madly in love with Dane. He has my heart. Anyway, Dane is rescued by Rhett and Sadie's dad, and then they're basically they're keeping each other safe. Things happen in Wes's life as well with his mom. Turns out she is very familiar with the motorcycle club and the president. So that was interesting. I love that, you know, Sadie's basically admitted to all of them throughout parts of this book, individually, that she loves them or loves him, depending on which one she's speaking to. Again, how she navigates being with three guys, I don't know, but she does it and it's good. And it was supposed to be a trilogy, and then I guess because the way it ended, you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen? It would have been too long of a third book, and if they had tried to like condense the story, like to add more to the first two books, it would have seemed a little bit rushed, and you wouldn't have that character development with the three guys and Sadie. So I'm looking forward to the final book, but I'm sad too because I've read the Gravestone Elite series by Caitlyn Dare, and I loved it, and this series I loved as well by Caitlyn Dare, and yeah, so we'll see what happens. The fourth book comes out in October, and it's called Sever. So yeah, so that's the end of my August wrap up. I will, as usual, put the names of the books that I read in the description below, as well as I'll link my Instagram page, which will have my reviews. Like, you can actually read the reviews on there as well. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Bye.